Yeah,
Oh,
it's
come on.
12:30,
Come
and
on.
I've got a note here that says Chair Johnston will not be
Okay.
able to make it today, so that throws it to the very dangerous vice chair. So with that, I will be doing the regular housekeeping remarks that only the chair or vice chair get when they have to make them. And we have to say these every time. So thank you for participating in our remote meeting. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation. Before we begin, I want to review some guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your other communication devices, such as your cell or desk phone. This will ensure that we are not hearing any feedback or causing interruption during the meeting. After each agenda item, the chair will announce public comment. Okay, so on Zoom instructions, for those on Zoom, if you would like to make public comment on the Zoom screen, please click on the raise hand button. If you are using Zoom on your smartphone, tap your screen, look for the more option, and then the raise hand button on the screen. For those calling in using the phone line only, you can dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment. Now, I don't know if I can see all 30 right now. I can if there's too many more. If I don't see your hand, hopefully Lisa will be looking at these two and just go like this and get my attention, and hopefully we'll conduct this in a fairly organized manner. So with that, I would like to ask Mayor Loch Dawson to maybe lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You have a very nice flag behind you, if you would, please.
Thank you. Sorry, my mic wasn't working. All right. Please put your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Supervisor Hewitt.
And thank you. So this will be the start of the Western Riverside County Regional Conservation Authority Board of Directors for Monday, October 4th. Now, can we have a roll call, please, Lisa?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. District 1?
District 1 here.
District 2?
Here.
District 3? District 4? District 5?
Here.
Banning? Beaumont?
Here.
Calimesa?
Here.
Canyon Lake?
Here.
Corona?
Here.
Eastvale?
Here.
Hemet?
Here.
Parupa Valley?
Here.
Lake Elsinore? Menifee?
Here.
Moreno Valley?
Here.
Marietta? Norco?
Norco here.
Paris? Riverside?
Here.
San Jacinto?
Here.
Temecula?
Marianne here.
Wildemar?
Midway here.
And Paris again? I thought I saw Paris join.
Yes, here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, we will move on to public comments. Now, these are public comments on items that aren't on the agenda. So first of all, I will ask if anybody here has a comment to be made. And remember, the board cannot, make comments on this because of Brown Act. It would have to be brought to the agenda for a future meeting. So with that, do we have any public comments? I do see one from Beaumont. Do we have any others from somebody that's not on the board, Lisa?
I am not seeing any hands raised, and I did not receive any written comments prior to the meeting.
Okay, so with that, I will call on our director from Beaumont. Julio, do you have something to say?
Yeah, just a quick thing. Thank you, Supervisor. I just want to remind the RCA that the City of Beaumont still has its offer to assist with the manual update with the procedure, and that we still strongly recommend looking at the prepayment of the mitigation fees to be included in the manual. So I just wanted to extend that offer and remind. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio. And if there are no others, then we will, are there any additions or revisions? Do we have it from staff or actually from any of the directors that would like to, this happens every once in a while. So
Nothing from staff.
if there are none, then forever hold your peace, and we will go on to, is there anyone who wishes to speak on the consent calendar before we take a vote? In other words, if you've got something that you would like to, pull from the consent calendar, there's A, B, or C, let us know. Otherwise, I would entertain motions to pass all three.
Move approval,
So-
Temecula.
Second, Waldemar. Second.
I have my hand raised to
Oh,
pull an
okay.
item.
All right, okay.
Maybe.
Ms. Sobek, which one would you like to pull?
6C.
6C, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and would Temecula and was it Wildemar that seconded it?
Yeah.
Would you guys change that motion to include A and B only?
Yes, move A and B only.
Second.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. We'll take roll call on that.
District 1,
District 1, yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes,
Banning, Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Corona,
Aye.
Eastville,
Yes.
Hemet,
Yes.
Rupa Valley,
Yes.
Menifee,
Yes.
Marina Valley,
Yes.
Norco.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Banning. Did you say Banning?
Yes, thank you.
Banning here.
Is that a yes vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Marianne, I.
Wildemar.
Yes.
Thank you. A and B from the consent calendar pass.
okay, thank you. And with that, Commissioner Sobek, would you like to take it from here and ask some questions about C?
Thank you, Supervisor. I don't know if you want to, can staff pull it up? Would that be all right to pull up? So down on the list on the next page, the 13 and 14. So I just see that, now, are these ones in order this time? Or are we doing that next time in the date that they've come in?
Good afternoon. These are in orders, and they are placed on the order of close of escrow or proposed close of escrow if we have one. If we do not have a close of escrow because we're still in negotiations, then we just prioritize them based on how they came in.
Okay, and then also, how does RCA just pick anyone? How do we, with our limited amount of funds, how do we know which ones to move forward with?
Okay, so there's different types of acquisitions. So for the grant property acquisitions, those were all those properties were named in the grant, and those were determined in the order of when the grant is expiring as well. So we're kind of limited to those properties that we had submitted, and we obviously want to be as competitive as possible at the state and federal level. So that was what was submitted at the time. For the development funds, those are also, again, out of our control. They are what gets submitted to the county or the cities for development purposes. So when those come in, then we'll prioritize them based on the order they come in for the close of escrow. We'll move forward with the acquisition, with the appraisals. On the non-development funds, again, it's sort of out of our control because they go through the county and the city, and then we'll acquire them. And those are the ones that we only have a certain amount set aside from our budget. I believe this year it's 5%. And based on what we have, then we'll close the properties that are on this list based on that priority. But the willing seller is maybe where that question is coming from as to how we determine when we categorize this as willing seller, because this is the one that we have the most say. And here we look at a lot of different things, and we look at these in a team. So as these requests come in, throughout the days that we work, when the property comes in, we'll prepare a vegetation map, we'll prepare an acquisition map of the area in question. We'll look at it as a team and determine, does this property have what we're looking for that's deemed very high priority for RCA based on the conservation that we're trying to achieve based on the plan. And there's different rankings for all of these properties, and not all of them qualify, because at the same time, we also have limited funds for willing seller. And willing seller, we don't have to move forward with an acquisition, whereas all the other properties, that we technically have to buy them one way or another. But willing seller, it could be as easy as you don't agree with the price, then everyone goes their own way.
Okay. All right. So I appreciate that. So definitely the highest priority is where RCA makes their decision on a willing seller.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And if you can't come to terms, you walk away. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to know a little bit more about that. So at this point, I will go ahead and make a motion that we approved 6C. Thank you.
Second, Temecula.
Okay, so we have a motion from Menifee and a second from Temecula. Can we take a roll call, please?
District 1,
District 1, yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Shoot. Yes, he came in. He wasn't there last time, so that's fine.
Come on, fess up. You want to be me.
You got yes, you got 2 yeses from District 3, so that's a bonus.
Banning,
I'm
Beaumont?
sorry here. Yeah,
Thank you.
Banning.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calimesa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Corona,
Aye.
Eastvale,
Yes.
Hemet,
Yes.
Arupa Valley,
Yes.
Menifee,
Yes.
Moreno Valley,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Aye.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Aye.
Wildemar.
Aye.
Thank you. That item passes.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Sobek, thank you so much for those questions. I'm sure that there's a lot of especially newer members and even some older ones that a lot of those are really good getting down into the details exactly how the process works. So thank you for that. We'll go on to number 7. Is there anyone that has public comments on agenda item number 7, the Joint Project Review Status Report?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, with none of those, then we will go on to that. I believe Tricia Campbell, you will be telling us about this.
Good afternoon, Chair and board members and the public. This presentation provides a summary of the Joint Project Review Status Report in your board meeting packet. This follows from the Getting to Know the MSACP JPR presentation a few months ago. The dashboard summarizes the project compliance procedures that the RCA is completing or has completed since January 1st through August 31st of this year. Next slide, please. It's very exciting. This slide is a snapshot on where the RCA is on processing and completing JPRs in 2021. The left column shows we are processing 15 JPRs as of today, and the right column shows we have already completed 19 JPRs this year. Now, the majority of the JPRs come from the County of Riverside, and the majority are for private development, such as residential. So far this year, we have processed several public projects, including 2 trail projects, one with the City of Paris and another with RCTC, a park project with the City of Temecula, and a county transportation project, which was the improvements to Gilman Springs Road. RCA has a staff of 2 people to conduct JPRs. That would be Betsy Dion and myself. We also have a vacant position in this department for which we are currently recruiting, as well as a consultant to provide supplemental staff work to ensure that we can process all JPRs that come to us in the 14-day interval. Next slide, please. This slide is a snapshot on where the RCA is on processing and completing the other forms of MSHCP compliance, such as participating special entity projects and criteria refinements. Participating special entity, also called PSE, is a procedure where an entity such as a utility company that would not be processing their project through a city or the county can receive MSHCP coverage for their project by becoming a PSE. For these, only the RCA and the wildlife agencies will review the projects for MSHCP consistency. Again, the left column shows we are processing 2 PSEs as of today, both of which are amendments to the originals. PSEs are much rarer than JPRs. This table also presents the criteria refinements we are processing. If you recall, criteria refinements are necessary when a project wants to develop land that is described to go into the MSHCP reserve. To date, we are processing 1 criteria refinement and expect it will be completed by the end of the year. Next slide, please. The staff recommends this item for the board to receive and file the Joint Project Review Monthly Status Report as of August 31st, 2021. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tricia. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners? And with that, it's a receive and file. We don't need a vote.
Correct.
Now, so moving on, and we, first of all, I believe we'd like to take, it's both of these items are with Aaron. And so if he would like to take both of them at the same time and feel more comfortable doing so, I would entertain that. And at first I must ask if there is anyone here to speak from the public on items 8 or 9 on the agenda.
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, so with that, it's your show, Aaron.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, board members. We're presenting this item on state and federal grants in the interest of maintaining transparency with the board on how we're doing with our state and federal grants. And I'm going to sum that status up in 3 words. They're 3 S words: struggle, success, and standby. So our goal here is to secure and spend as many of the grant funds as we can to help our local fee dollars go farther and bring our state and federal partners to the table as often as we can. So I'm going to start with the success, and this is actually hot off the press. So this happened last week in between executive committee and today. We received a state grant. This is on the wildlife side, on the biological side. Last week, we learned that the state awarded a grant to RCA to study Kino checker spot butterfly, which is an endangered species in western Riverside County. And we received $15,000 to study how soils affect the host plant that the butterflies like. And the purpose of this grant is to help us better manage the property that we have to help protect the butterfly and also to guide our future acquisitions. So going to Director Sobek's question earlier on, how do we decide what to buy? When we have information like this, when we have research like this, and we end up with a property that may be ideal for conserving an endangered species like the Kino checker spot butterfly, we know to prioritize it with the limited funds that we have. So while this is, in the big picture, this is a small amount of money, but it could do big things. We also partnered with the San Diego Natural History Museum on another successful grant that was awarded last week to study burrowing owl, which is another critical species within our area. And we also partnered with UC Davis, who was successful on a grant announced last week to study mountain lion and to better track their movements and understand how they're moving in and around the Santa Ana Mountains. So we're very pleased with the success we had last week on these grants. Staff put a lot of time into them and will help us administer the plan better. So item 9 on this agenda is a resolution that if you adopt today would allow us to proceed with accepting the grant funds and get the research started as soon as possible. So we recommend your approval on that resolution on item 9. I'm combining that with item 8, which is just a status report on our land acquisition grants, which I'll start talking about now. That's both been a success and a struggle, and there's some things we need to stand by on. So our success starts with our 2017 federal Section 6 grant, which was $2 million awarded in fiscal year 2017. We've been working really hard to spend the rest of that money down. We've partnered with the Nature Conservancy to lock up some properties that we're taking to the State Wildlife Conservation Board. I'm happy to report that in August, 2 properties for that grant were approved by the Wildlife Conservation Board, and we have 3 more properties going to the November meeting of the Wildlife Conservation Board. One of these properties we did struggle with. The California Department of General Services had concerns with one of our appraisals. We had an extended back and forth with them, and I'm pleased to report that our right-of-way team led by Hector was able to work out those issues, and we should be moving forward to close out that grant by the end of the year. And that's important because we're living on a 6-month extension of the grant right now. And that's the last one we're going to get. So we need to get this wrapped up here in the next couple of months. In the meantime, we're getting started for the next Section 6 funding round, and we expect any day now here in October for the fiscal year 22 funds to be made available. And so for the last several months, in fact, almost as soon as RCTC came on board here, we began looking for properties we could submit in this next round of grant funding to have properties that are ready to go. Because one of the keys here is making sure that we have willing sellers, to make sure that we have properties that are critical for conservation, that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are going to say, yes, that's a priority. We need to give our limited dollars to that. So we've identified 8 potential properties we can put forward. And as soon as that notice comes out from Washington, we're going to start putting our grant together. Next in the somewhat success, somewhat struggle, and somewhat standby categories is our State Jurupa Mountains grant. And as you recall, a couple of years ago, Assemblymember Sabrina Cervantes secured $14.7 million in the state budget to conserve lands on the Jurupa Mountain. And ever since then, RCA has been trying to find properties there to conserve. I'm happy to report that within the last few weeks, we've closed on our first 2 properties on Jurupa Mountain, totals 57 acres, and the cost was $320,000 for both of those properties. Now, $320,000 out of $14.7 million leaves a lot of money left. And I just want to be very candid with the board here. It is almost mathematically impossible for us to be able to spend all of that money. And the reasons are multiple. One is that the land values are lower in this area. And so even if every landowner on the mountain wanted to sell us their land, we probably wouldn't be able to exhaust the funding. The next reason is there aren't many people willing to sell to us. Earlier this year, we reinitiated contact with 31 property ownerships who are eligible within the grant area. And there's only a few that responded affirmatively, and we're proceeding with making offers to them now. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to secure a few more. We're also working with the Jurupa Area Recreation and Park District on 2 properties that they own. So this is a public agency that's willing to sell us their land to put it into conservation. So we're doing everything we can to spend that money, but we're going to have a lot left over. And so in the meantime, we are working with the California State Natural Resources Agency and Assemblymember Sabrina Cervantes to do 2 things. One, we want to extend the grant timeline. The grant expires in March, and we're able to extend it a year. So we'd like to do that, but we'd also like to expand the geography of where we can spend this money. We will continue to prioritize the Jurupa Mountain, but understanding that if we don't spend it, it will revert back to the state. We'd like to be able to spend this money in a broader area of the MSHCP area. And to do that, we need Assemblymember Cervantes to indicate her support to the California Natural Resources Agency. And so we've made that request of the Assembly member. We're waiting to hear back. Actually, last Friday, our staff communicated with her staff again to reiterate our request to expand the area for this grant. We don't have an answer yet. We'll continue talking to them. And this is where we're going to need to stand by. So we'll keep you posted if we're able to be successful in doing that. But all in all, this is a team effort. Your whole organization is working for you, from finance to legislative affairs, the executive team, the acquisition team, and ultimately you at some point may need to be involved in some of these. So I just want to let you know where we're at, and happy to take any questions.
Do we have any hands up or questions for anything on this? Let's see, Tony, I see we have one from you. You want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, thank you, sir. Aaron, I just had a quick question. Is part of the problem that we're not able to get into these bidding wars per se, because we can only purchase what the stated value is, and nobody really wants to lowball themselves into an offer?
That's a great question. So we are limited by the appraised value. So we do commission appraisals on these properties, and the appraisals have to meet certain state and federal standards. And so we have to hire appraisers who know these standards and who have a track record of passing muster with the state and federal reviewers. And so I want to make clear, we do not intentionally or go after lowballing these property owners. We have to pay fair market value for the property. The struggle becomes when the property owner wants more for their property than the appraisal comes in at. We really are limited in being able to offer them more than that. And that's a struggle. And that's why on some of the federal properties, we're trying to do earlier outreach to have a conversation with the property owners, make sure they understand what this process will be, and only bring forward those properties where the owner, we feel, has a good understanding of how this is going to go and might be amenable to what the outcome will be. Because not every owner is willing to go that far.
And then my follow-up question is, you had said that the grant money runs out in March of 2022. Is that correct? And we're hoping to get it. And we're hoping to get it extended by 1 year.
For the Harupa Mountain Grant, that's correct.
Okay. And is it at a point where any one of us could maybe help ratchet up some pressure on Assemblywoman Cervantes's office to get her to support that endeavor?
So good question. So on the grant timeline extension, that one's easier to do, and we can do administratively with the state Natural Resources Agency. They've expressed a willingness to do that. It's the expansion of the geography that will require, it can also be done administratively, but the state resources agency has said that they will need an expression of support from the assembly member for that. And that's where I would say, if you have the opportunity to communicate with the assembly member to let her know that it's a priority, if you feel so, that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sobek, you've got your hand up raised.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, staff, for working on the grants, going back to the state and federal grants. I was making a few notes, and I was just wondering, I missed it, Aaron. Where did the Burrowing Owl grant and the Mountain Lion grant, what were they? Could you repeat that? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. This is where I'd like to invite Tricia Campbell, who's our Reserve Management and Monitoring Manager, to discuss what those two grants are.
Good afternoon. So the Burrowing Owl grant is actually going to be processed and worked through the San Diego Natural History Museum. They have a great deal of expertise, and that grant is focused on creating a protocol to assess foraging habitat for burrowing owl. And that will help us with relocations and also focused efforts on existing lands. For the mountain lion, that work will be done through UC Davis, and it is supplementing work that they have already performed along with the Nature Conservancy for the mountain lion population in the Santa Ana Mountains, right along the 15 Temecula Creek corridor.
Okay, thank you so much. That is just great. Again, do we need a motion on that or anything to accept that, a resolution to approve to accept those grants?
Yes, we will need a motion on the resolution on item number 9.
If we're ready for that, I'll go ahead and.
Yeah, I would just like to add a bit of interest. Obviously, the Keno checker spot butterfly grant is based upon finding a soil that's probably much more hospitable to the plants. If we can plant more plants, then we get more butterflies. Is that right, Aaron? And it's, too bad it can't overlap with burrowing too, because you'd think that those burrowing owls don't want to dig through the harder stuff. But anyway, with that given, yeah. And remember, we're getting just a 25% match on that. So the 15,000, we're putting in what, 5,000 and some change?
Yeah, we're putting in our staff time, basically.
Right. Okay.
You know, you mentioned the plants, Supervisor. It's actually a good topic. I talked to a biologist school teacher. She's got her degree in biology, and she was posting things in our city this summer on the Monarch butterfly and how they were hatching, and she was showing the chrysalis and the different, and she had planted milkweed in her yard, and she just kind of reached out to me and said, you know, can our parks in our city plant some of these native plants that would attract these butterflies? So, and I don't know that answer, and that might be a little bit of good information that we might be able to receive to let us know, is this something in our area, or are they invasive plants and we don't want to plant certain plants? So
this Marianne, they can be invasive, yes, because we had the same thing, and I have a butterfly garden, and they grow profusely, but they really do work. I've got butterflies everywhere. Now, we actually established a natural plant park, and it's in the Rorpaw Panhandle, right where Murrieta Hot Springs turns into Butterfield Stage Road. And so that's a great idea. I might see if we can, maybe if you contain the roots somehow or something, but they are kind of wild, but they really do work.
Okay, thank you. We do have a hand raised by Commissioner Bash.
Hi, I'm sure you all know about this, but there's something called the Monarch Butterfly Pledge for mayors. City of Norco actually is part of that. We have been for many, many years. We have milkweed planted all. In fact, my school that we own has tons of stuff, milkweed planted, and we actually have it planted in some of our parks near our city hall. And then every year we renew that pledge. So it's kind of cool. We have butterflies everywhere in Norco, not just horses.
can you, I'm unaware of that. Would you mind sharing that?
I was just trying to get to the website. I'll find it in the chat box. It's through the National Wildlife Federation. So,
all right, and then I just had one more comment. Could we get some information? Maybe Betsy can supply it sometime. Well, we're not there yet. I'll wait.
Thank you. So with that, do I hear a motion on item number 9?
Motion, Canyon Lake.
Motion from Canyon Lake,
Second, Harupa Valley.
second Harupa Valley. Can we have a roll call on that, please, Lisa?
District 1,
District 1, yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont,
Yes.
Calamasa,
Yes.
Canyon Lake,
Aye.
Corona,
Aye.
Eastvale,
Yes.
Hemet,
Yes.
Harupa Valley,
Yes.
Menifee,
Yes.
Marina Valley,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside,
Yes.
San Jacinto,
Yes.
Temecula,
Sorry for speaking out of turn, and yes.
Wildemar.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 9 passes.
Thank you. Okay, now moving to item number 10. Do we have any public comment requests for item number 10?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay, well, that we will we'll hear from David Knudsen.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and board members. I'm happy to be with you this afternoon. Today, I'll provide you with an update on state and federal legislative actions. RCA's state priority this year was to advocate for increased state investment in habitat conservation and land acquisition. While the Legislative Affairs team advocated for $500 million in dedicated funding to the Wildlife Conservation Board, first in the proposed wildfire and climate resiliency bond measures, and then later in the state budget, the legislature and the governor instead opted to increase WCB's local assistant budget to $96 million for federal fiscal year 2021-22. That's a $31 million increase. While appreciated, this is somewhat disappointing considering the budget proposes to dedicate $15 billion for climate action over 3 years, and specifically $3.7 billion for climate resiliency programs over 3 years. Administration officials in the California Natural Resources Agency have indicated that they intend to increase investment towards the 30 by 30 goal to conserve 30% of the state's lands and coastal waters by 2030 once they finalize their 30 by 30 strategy. The Legislative Affairs team has consistently engaged this public comment process and will continue to do so in order to promote HCPs as a ready tool to implement the 30 by 30 goals. Indeed, the State Habitat Conservation Plan Coalition members have recently received intelligence that the state intends to increase funding to WCB in fiscal year 2022-23 and again in fiscal year 2023-24. But it's important to note that the funding levels rumored to be under consideration are well below the $500 million we were advocating for. And since no budget may obligate the general fund spending of future fiscal years, we'll need to remind the legislature of its 3-year funding commitment with increased and dedicated funding to WCB. On the federal side, Congress just averted a government shutdown by passing a continuing resolution to fund the government through December 3rd. We expect the Senate to continue the markup of their appropriations bills until then. We will closely follow the legislative process on RCA's pending earmark request with Senators Feinstein and Padilla to fund the Wolfskill acquisition project. After a positive meeting with the Bureau of Land Management in mid-September, we're optimistic that the local BLM office in Palm Springs will be a ready partner should RCA receive the earmark funding. The Senate appropriations process may continue for some time, but we'll keep you apprised of our funding requests. Lastly, we received a letter from Assistant Director Gary Frazier of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Washington, D.C. recently, responding to RCA's February 2021 letter to the Department of the Interior Secretary Holland with our proposed reforms to the Section 6 program. While his remarks in the letter struck a positive tone, RCA does not expect dramatic changes to how Section 6 grants are administered. The Legislative Affairs team looks forward to hearing more from the Assistant Director and others at the National HCP Coalition's annual conference this week, and we'll report back to the board on any new developments. This concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for David on any of the federal or state legislative issues? One comment, like I say, it seems like climate with the 3.9 billion from the state or something, that looks like our way if we're going to get any real money out of that, right? That's a much bigger number. So if we tie it ties to climate because we don't put out a whole lot of carbon when we put it away for conservation. So thank you, David. Moving right along, presentation, many of our favorite part of any RCA meeting, and that will be from Betsy Dion.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board, and the public. I'm Betsy Dion. I'm Senior Management Analyst for Management and Monitoring for the RCA. And this month, our species of the month is the San Diego Desert Wood Rat. Next slide. The San Diego Desert Wood Rat is one of our larger small mammal species. They are 9 to 15 inches long and weigh 4 to 5 ounces. Their habitat consists of a variety of shrub and desert habitats, and they show a preference to large cactus patches or rocky outcroppings. Their range includes Southern California and the Great Basin, Mojave, and Colorado deserts. They're primarily herbivorous, which means they're vegetarians. Their diet includes leaves, seeds, berries, parts of flowers, and yucca shoots. They build large dens, which are also known as middens, which consists of vegetation and woody material, as you can see in the photo here on the right. This is also why they get the name of pack rat. Next slide, please. The litter size for this species is 2 to 3 pups, and females can bear up to 4 litters per year. They also can breed year-round, and their lifespan isn't well studied, but they may live up to 2 years in the wild. Threats to the species include loss of habitat and wildfire. Climate can also impact their breeding success. So during very harsh drought years, they might not reproduce at all. So for a species that only lives a couple of years, you could see how even though they can have a lot of young in a year, if it's a bad year, they might not have any young for a couple of years, which could affect the population. Next slide, please. The species objectives for the species are to include within the MSHCP conservation area 364,828 acres of suitable habitat in the plan area, comprised of chaparral, coastal sage scrub, Riversidean alluvial fan sage scrub, desert scrub, and juniper woodland and scrub. To date, there are almost 300,000 acres of suitable habitat that are conserved for the species. The monitoring objectives for the species is to monitor the distribution of the species at least once every 8 years and maintain species presence and continued use at 75% of identified locations. This species has been detected in 10 of 16 core areas. So the monitoring objective has not been met for this species, but we're expecting to meet it with just some focused trapping. They're a pretty easy critter to trap if you know where to look for them. Next slide. So that's all I have for you today on the San Diego Desert Wood Rat. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, with that, do we see anyone? That looks like a little bit bigger version of the Stevens kangaroo rat.
Well, they're a little different. So the kangaroo rats, like they have those long back legs that they use to hop around, and they also eat a totally different diet. So kangaroo rats subsist more on seeds, whereas the desert wood rat will eat vegetation, leafy greens, other things like that. So yeah, they're a little different. They have a different niche in the environment, but they're also really huge and very cute, and actually quite stinky if you ever handle one.
Are they the prey for the same predators?
Yes, it would be similar. So you would expect coyotes to go after them, bobcats to go after them, owls would probably go after them too. So yes, they're food for bigger things.
Thank you so much, Betsy. And we do have a hand from Supervisor Spiegel up there. Yes, Karen?
Quick question. If they're called the San Diego wood rat, are they predominantly in San Diego? Do we have much up in our county?
They're in our area too. As I said, they're all over Southern California. Sometimes when species are named, their common names are based on where they were first discovered. So it's possible that this species, they first found it in San Diego, and so that's why they named it that. But I will say that there are multiple species of wood rats, and there oftentimes will be a lot of debate on what species goes where, which ones are related to which, if we're talking about a subspecies. So if two species are separated for long enough, are those two different species or just one? So yeah, the common names a lot of times just kind of give you a general idea or what people, originally name them, but those change, and the scientific names change all the time too, based on, if they get more information about the DNA or other things. So yeah, it gets a little complicated.
Thank you. Yes, Lisa Sobek.
Sorry, I wasn't off mute. So I noticed in the picture you showed their habitat near a yucca tree, or look like a yucca cactus. Do they normally, is their habitats, do you find them quite often in that type of a environment?
Yes, so they will show a preference for large cactus patches or within like a lot of like pokey brush, like yuccas, because that's how they hide from predators. So you can imagine if you live in a big cactus patch or underneath a pokey yucca, it would be harder for like a coyote to get to you or any other kind of predator.
So I saw in the diet that they also eat the yucca shoots, but yet on the next page in the habitat, what we're trying to preserve, it didn't mention that, or maybe it's the next one. it did right there where it says that the number one or the first one, the MSHCP conservation area, it didn't mention that that was something that you look to preserve in that area that provides that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, so yuccas, like we have a few different species of yucca that occur in the plant area. And you can find them in chaparral and coastal sage scrub, desert scrub. So pretty much all of those habitat types that are listed there, you would expect to find yuccas in.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Okay, that brings us to Board of Directors reports. And first of all, do we have any comments or reports from any of the Board of Directors? Ms. Sobek.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if it's appropriate for the MSHCP or RCA to provide that information, or at least give us, could you, if it's not, and it's too much staff time, could they provide an area where we can look and what we should plant, what we could plant, what we shouldn't plant in our parks to attract butterflies? That's what I was wondering.
Certainly, we'll look for some resources to circulate to the board on native plants.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, and then Marianne, I believe you're up next.
Thank you. I would just like to invite everyone to come to our State of the City, which is going to be October the 14th, 7 o'clock at beautiful Pechanga Resort and Spa, and it's sponsored by the Temecula Chamber of Commerce. So you'll probably you will receive invitations, and I'm just telling you in advance. October 14th, I'd love to see some friendly faces in the audience. This will be the first State of the City that's been done in person in 2 years. So we're very, very excited.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And now we'll go to Horsetown, USA with Commissioner Bash.
I just sent a bunch of stuff to Aaron on butterflies, and maybe he can disseminate that. And if you want to go to a real State of the City on October 14, come to Norco. So, Marianne, we will have a deal where let's see who gets the most elected officials to come to their event.
Oh, okay.
That's throwing down the gauntlet, I'll tell you. We have, I have a Jocelyn Yao. You got your hand up?
Yes. This is Mayor Jocelyn Yao from the city of Eastville. No worries. We have our State of the City on October 7th. So it's a week ahead of the other two cities. So feel free to stop by. It's at 6 p.m. at Vantage Point Church. And again, it's this Thursday, October 7th. And actually, I Supervisor Karen Spiegel will be there. That I do know. But yeah, feel free to join us.
Right. Do we have any more State of the Cities? We've got a lot of mayors getting very, very competitive here. So I believe there's a couple others coming up, but if not so, forever hold your peace. And you still have your
this city of Banning, our State of the City is October the 14th at Sun Lakes at 1 o'clock, I think.
Thank you very much, Mayor Wallace.
And Supervisor, I'd like to add the city of Menifee would like to invite everyone out to their State of the City, which will be October 21st at 8:30 in the morning. And it's at our new Fairfield Inn and Suites. You won't want to miss it.
Fantastic. And I got a feeling that Ben's going to tell us something either about smog or the state of Wildomar.
No, it's the State of the City of Wildomar. Ours is November 4th at 6 p.m. at Martin O'Brien Park. So since we're all doing that, I figured might as well.
Well, this is where to ask all the really important people. And Commissioner Tony Daddario, let's hear it.
Yeah, Corona is a high performing city, so we've already had our State of the City. But I do want to invite all of the commissioners to the city of Corona. Starting on October 7th, we are the only California stop for the wall that heals, which is a 3/4 replica of the Vietnam War Memorial. It will be at Santana Park. It will be open 24 hours a day until October 10th. And you are all welcome and invited.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. I can only imagine what Commissioner Krupa is going to tell us. It probably has nothing to do with City of Hemet, does it?
Nothing at all. No, actually, Hemet State of the City is going to be Friday, November 5th at 6:30 on the upstairs patio at the library. So come and enjoy a beautiful evening of entertainment being outside.
All
Thank
right. All right. Now, I'm going to count 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. I'm sure there's some cities out there that either have had theirs or haven't had theirs. So if not anymore, then we'll move on while I'm safe. And at this time, before the executive director, I'd like to have Aaron, would you like to make some comments on the stakeholders committee update?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to send the regards of Executive Director Ann Mayer. She's tending to the RCTC bond sale in New York right now. There's about $800 million of transactions occurring, and so she was unable to make the meeting today, so I'm standing in. And on behalf of Chair Natasha Johnson, just wanted to remind the board that the application process for the Stakeholders Committee is open, and the application can be found on the RCA website under the Committees tab. You'll be receiving, in addition to the email you've already received from Ann about this, the chair will be sending an email later this week. You may also see some social media if Facebook ever works again. And feel free to share the social media, the email. We'd like to encourage applicants to the committee, and the chair will be discussing further details about the committee in the coming months. She hopes to make appointments by the end of the year.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for stepping up and filling us in on that. With that, I believe, and I know a lot of us go on to another JPA here shortly, but I don't believe we have any closed sessions. So our next meeting will be Monday, November 1st, 2021. And with that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion, Kenny Lake.
There's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second from Banny.
All right, guys. We'll see you. We'll see you in November. Have a good, and probably see a lot of those State of the Cities.